and welcome to WarHQ. Today what I'd like to cover is a faction breakdown of the Tau. Who are the Tau? Are they crazy blue smurfs without hats? Are they intergalactic fishmen? Or are they just super annoying for your opponents and super OP? That's what we're going to look into today. Hopefully I'm going to get time to go through the individual roles of the Tau, their strengths, their weaknesses, the tactics that are available to them, the units available to them, and then just go through some general strategic advice upon the Tau themselves. So if you'd like to continue with this, then keep watching, and I'm Lucius, and let's get on with it. Okay, let's start by having a look at what makes the Tau the Tau. Why are they good? I'm going to break that down into two main roles. The first one is going to be their shooting ability. So they are a shooting kill team. Make no mistakes about it, my friends. There is no close combat to be seen anywhere around here. They have never even heard of the concept. Apparently in the drone doctrine of fighting, it's an unheard of thing. But their shooting is another thing altogether. It's on another level. Particularly the weapons that they all have. They're all very high strength weapons and volume of fire weapons, which makes the Tau really good at shooting. They also have arguably one of the best guns in the game, which is the Tau rail rifle. Now, anyone who's faced off against this with an elite team knows that this is something to be feared. You know, destroying warrior nids in one shot, except the Tau rifle, no exceptions. Now, the other strength that these guys have is their ability to control the board. And by that I mean their ability to move and their ability to hold objectives. Now, the Tau drones, all of them across the board have a base move of 8, which makes them incredibly maneuverable and fast. But it also, with the fly ability, they can go anywhere. Nothing stops them, no terrain, no anything. So this ability makes Tau one of the best objective gaining and holding forces that there are. They're great with secondary objectives. They're great with all sorts of movement shenanigans. And these are what make the Tau awesome. Now let's have a look at the strengths of the Tau kill team. Now I've already touched on this first one a little bit, but I'd need to really reiterate this because this is one of the best things about the Tau, in my opinion, and one of the strongest weapons in the game, and it is a strength all of its own, and that is the Tau rail rifle. Okay, this is a rapid fire one weapon, has a 30-inch range, so that's 2 shots within 15 inches, strength 6, -4 AP, so there's no armor, I'm sorry, Marines in elite teams, except if you're a Terminator. It also has D3 damage, and just as a little bit of icing on the cake, if you roll a 6 on your wound roll, it's an automatic mortal wound, which makes it even better. So you can imagine the sort of killing potential this weapon has. Now the Tau have access to 3 of these in their kill team lists, which is another thing which annoys a lot of people. And if you're looking at the base model of the Tau Pathfinder Gunner, which is what these come with, the base cost is 7, but with the rail rifle, it's 5 extra. So it ends up being 12 points each. So for 36 points, you have 3 of the most powerful guns in kill team at your disposal as a Tau player. And this is a massive strength. Now, I played this team competitively. I placed 2nd at the Australian national titles this year. Only lost to the guy who eventually won, and that was very close as well. And I've got to say that the Tau rail rifles really paid home. I came up against a lot of Death Guard teams. I came up against a lot of Tyranid teams. Now, Plague Marines, Tyranid warriors melted under these things. There was one big game in particular that I had where the rail rifles by turn 2 had killed all of the warrior nids, and then it was just gaunts, and they pretty much couldn't make morale tests and broke. So you know, that's the kind of strength we're looking at with these things. So big models are definitely afraid of you when you're rocking around with 3 rail rifles. Now the next strength, and this is going to be a pretty big one, is because it's just such a good unit, and this is the Tau drone, and particularly the Tau gun drone. I mean, let's face it, the Tau recon drone is the best drone there is, but you can only have one of them within your kill team. It's an auto include for all this. It gives you bonuses to shooting and cover and stuff like that. So we'll go into that when I go into the actual units themselves. But just as far as drones go, I'm going to talk about them broadly. Now, The volume of fire they have is high. They get 4 shots a turn with 2 guns that can be split, which is another thing to remember. 2 shots at 2 separate targets. Their ballistic skill isn't great at 5, but the volume of fire usually ensures that you get at least a hit. And at strength 5, it's a good gun for such a cheap model. I mean, gun drone, 7 points, and arguably one of the best models, for that points cost in the game, for sure. I can't see many other things that even compete personally. Now, what makes drones so good? It's not just the volume of shooting. It's not the main thing about them. It's the way that they can move on the table. With the fly ability, the drone's able to just ignore terrain. It's got a base move of 8. So, I mean, there's a potential of 14 if you roll a 6 on your advances. That's 14 inches across the battlefield potential. This makes it amazing, and at such a cheap cost, you can field so many of them, and you can literally just swarm the board and all the objectives and gain as many of those points and secondary objectives as you can within competitive play. So keep that in mind. Another really strong thing about the drones is their ability to fall back and still be able to shoot. Now, this comes with the fly ability. Okay, now the fly ability is possessed by a lot of units within the tower themselves. So not only do the drones fly, the stealth suits fly, and also the crisis suits. So you can actually make a whole force of flying if you want, and just have the maneuverability to just decimate the world, if that's the way you go. But this fallback ability is very strong. If you've got a whole line of tower drones at the start, at the front of your battle line, if you advance them, the enemy try and charge you, you fall back and you can still shoot. That's powerful, eh? And a lot of shots, and it puts them on the off foot. You know what I mean? Like, especially a full melee sort of focused close combat army, you can really catch off guard with this ability. Really strong. And the cost of the drone is another strength of it. And they can do a couple of other little shenanigans. Now, one of these is called savior protocols. Okay, so with savior protocols, if you're within 3 of a friendly model, the drone is able to jump in front of it basically and transfer the wounds that that model would have taken onto itself. Now that's insane. Now that means that your nice little rail rifles you've got sitting up the back of the field, pretty protected from snipers for the most part, is because if you keep a drone around them, it's still got a decent range with its gun and can provide support as well. Now this drone can save your protocol, your rail guns, and keep them alive longer, so you get more of those high damage shots off on the enemy and do more killing. And that is what this game is about, really, isn't it? Now, on top of the savior protocol, all Tau, and this is another strength in the list, have what is called the greater good. Okay, so the greater good means that they are Overwatch masters. Very dangerous, and your opponent is always thinking twice about charging a Tau force because of this ability. Now, normally, if you declare a single model for a charge, say, that model has the option of firing Overwatch if it's able to. But anything within 6 of that model with the Tau can also fire Overwatch if it chooses to. Now, granted, this can only be done once with that model per turn in this phase, but this can really turn the tide of things. I mean, if you're fishing for 6s, and you've got a prime model about to get charged. I remember in one of the tournaments there was a Tyrannid warrior, and it was going to change, like with its advanced movement and all of that weird faction stuff they get with Kraken. This thing was in my back line in turn 1 and right on my railgunners. Now it charged my railgunners, and I greater gooded it with everything. And this thing, I think it had 1 wound left at the end and was flesh wounded, and it was messed up. And it turned the tide enough that I was able to turn back that attack and just really diverted a disaster from happening, because it would have been a disaster. It would have killed all of my railguns within turn 1, which would have been insane. But with this ability, I was able to pull that sort of victory out of defeat in that hands. So this greater good ability is an amazing asset to the tower. They also have a SEPT, if you want to make this even better, which enables you to do Overwatch shots on 5/6, which makes this really strong. You could basically put your whole army list around this. But we'll talk about those as we come up. But these, to me, are the main strengths of the tower. Okay, we've examined the strengths. Now just let's take a bit of time to check out the weaknesses of the tower. And they have a few, let's be honest. I mean, all these amazing things that they have as strengths have to have some counter. And the main counters to those are the following. So their close combat ability. Okay, I can't. Everything in this team basically has a 5-up weapon skill. I mean, even your elite options, most of them do. They're really bad at close combat. They don't even have specialist like close combat weapons. There's hardly anything to be even talked about within the list itself. In fact, yeah, looking here at the book itself, that was just to double check myself. There's literally no close combats in the core manual, weapons in the core manual. That just shows you how good they are at close combat. So let's just forget that, because they don't need to, right? They've got heaps of guns, heaps of shooting, all that other crazy stuff. They don't need close combat. It's just sissies. Now, your base Pathfinders and the Tau themselves are quite brittle. And I'd say this about their elite options too. They're still usually only, even your stealth suits and your crisis suits are still only toughness 4. Which doesn't make them super strong, but everything else, the drones are toughness 4 as well, which isn't so bad, but your Tau themselves are all toughness 3. Pathfinders have a saving throw of 5-up. Fire warriors, if you ever take one, have a 4-up, which isn't too bad, but they're pretty easy to kill. But I would counter this with the Savior Protocol that we went through before. Can really help to counter this for the weaker troops with drones. So that's something there. Okay, so the maximum leadership you're ever going to get with the Tau as well is with their leader units, which really only comes to 7, which is pretty low too. So most troops across the board have a 6, which is super low. For some reason, Tau drones have a 6 too, and they run away from things and get shaken. I don't know how that works. Maybe they've got some really smart AI out there in Tau land, but yeah, it's just one of those crazy things. Now, this next thing I'm going to list as a weakness. So you're probably thinking, now this isn't a weakness, you just said this is a strength and its main role as a shooting kill team. Yeah, I did say that. But they don't actually have the best shooting as far as shooting skill goes, so ballistic skill. So normal Tau only have a 4-up. Drones all have a 5-up. So it's not that great. I mean, if you look at the modifiers that you generally get on things, you're looking at 6s most of the time to hit with most Tau models, particularly drones. Now, upon saying that though, there is some crazy stuff you can do with shooting, and I'll go into that further on when I look at the individual units. But yeah, for now, that's the main weaknesses of the Tau. Now, let's have a look at the SEPT tenets. Really stupid name, don't know how they came up with it. But basically, this is the sub-factions available to the Tau. I'm going to talk about the main 2 that I use. And really, I mean, competitively, there's really one that I use the most, and that is the Saucia. Oh, these are weird names, so bear with me in my weird Australian accent. But Saucia SEPT. So this one counters that weakness that I talked about before, which is the low morale, and gives you a +1 to your leadership characteristic across the board, which is handy. But the main thing it does, every shooting attack, you get to re-roll 1s. Every shooting attack, every phase. Amazing. That is really strong. It's really one of the better sub-factions you can get across the board for most teams. The other one I sort of touched on briefly before is the Tau SEPT itself. Now, the Tau SEPT enables you to be able to fire Overwatch in a 5-6, which is really strong too. So if you're going to base it more of a defensive force, you can really use this one for greater good ability, like I was talking about before, where everyone can shoot at someone that charges at you within 6. Now, this is devastational. So if you think you're going up against a close combat team, you want something that's just all Overwatch and going to be hitting everyone, then this is the SEPT for you, is the Tau one. The others are based around shooting, as you'd expect for a kill team like this, which is all about shooting with no close combat. But, those 2 are the main 2 that I would recommend, and the main 2 that I see used competitively as well. I've seen both used, and both used fairly effectively. The others you can look up and peruse yourself, but and experiment, but to my knowledge, this is the best they get. Right, let's dive into the units of the Tau and kill team. First is the Fire Warrior. not the most popular of models within the tower kill team, let's face it. They've got the breacher option, or they've got the one with the pulse rifle. Both are a bit underwhelming, and there's a few reasons for that, and that's because the Pathfinder model is slightly cheaper. It has like less armor, but it has all the heavy weapon options available to it. So all of those juicy rail rifles that you wanted, they're all within the Pathfinders. So the Fire Warrior sort of loses out a bit. It does make a good leader, though. I will say that it does make a good leader, like a Fire Warrior Shisui. Has that extra bit of armor save, which does make him a good leader. And I generally like to take a Fire Warrior to go with my DS8 tactical support turret. A lot of people write these off, but I've got to say, competitive play, another story there. I took the smart missile system with this one. Now it only hits on 6s and it's indirect fire, so you can fire anywhere on the board and you hit on 6s. Now it has 4 attacks, okay, so you've got a pretty good chance of rolling a 6 within that. Now I was fighting a Azurani player, like I had Eldar, and he had taken his Craft World just standard Guardian as a leader. Now turn 1, I managed to kill him with the smart turret. Now this essentially won me the game because I got maximum points in my secondary objectives for cut off their head, which was the leader one. So I got 3 points straight up on turn 1 for killing his leader, not to mention the fact that then he only had 1 CP for the rest of the game. So it doesn't work all the time, but there is this thing within Kill Team where everyone takes the weakest leader they can, so they can sit them at the back. You know, especially like say orcs or something, if you're playing against orcs and they have like a goblin leader, smart turret. You can pretty much kill it by the game's end, hopefully. But you know, generally good chance on turn 1 as well, especially against, you know, it is a good weapon. The turret also has the missile pod option too, which is an assault 2 weapon. Really good. It's like having, not quite as good as a rail rifle, but it's getting there. It's a assault 2, so it's got 2 attacks, 36-inch range, which is the whole board. It has strength of 7, -1 AP, and D3 wounds. So that's another, if you want another heavy weapon to go with your rail rifles, there's another option, and it's fairly cheap as well. So I think the best thing about the Fire Warriors, as I said, is the Shisui option for your leader, and also the support turret. They're the 2 things I'd take from the Fire Warriors. Now the Pathfinders, we've talked about these a little bit already. This is what gives you your rail rifle, as I said, and your rail rifles and your heavy weapons. So these are kind of an essential and a must-take, in my opinion. They're really cheap, 6 points base. And if you need to fill in a slot here or there, I mean, I wouldn't take one of these over a drone. There's really not much point, unless you're going to make it like a specialist, like you're going to make it comms. So I'd definitely take a comms specialist. And that's an option here as well that you could use. You could take like the Pathfinder Shisui or something like that and turn it into a comms specialist. Wouldn't be a bad option. And then have that near your rail rifles. So you can make these little kill teams, you know what I mean? This is what I do myself, is these little murder teams that exist within that all sort of chain each other. So you've got your comms specialist there, and then you're going to have your rail rifles. The comms specialist can bonus them. Then, you know, later on I'll talk about the drones and what you can do with them to help boost them even further. And then also the abilities of those specialist rail rifles as well. And I do really recommend that you use your specialists as your rail rifles. You know, like you take the usual stuff that you would normally take. You know, you can take sniper, you can take demolitions. There's 2 auto includes for your rail rifles. So there's just 2 things to consider there, and that's the Pathfinders. Now, breaches. Games Workshop's been pushing breaches onto us for ages, right? We all know this, and it's new. They're not that great. I mean, you know, their weapon bonus gets better the closer they are to the enemy. But, I mean, if it was up to me to take a breacher or a drone, I'm going to take a drone pretty much every time. So with its flyability, all of the other things it can do, and with breaches still being so brittle and vulnerable to attack, I'm going to take the drone every time. So nothing much to say about them, and not many other people do either. Now, Stealth Battlesuit, interesting model. This one, it's not too bad. I actually took these in my roster for the tournament that I played in, but I didn't end up running them. I was always just a little bit too hesitant because they are a little bit more expensive, but they are good. I mean, they can fly as well. You can have quite a few of them. The Stealth Shazavai, I think it is the leader, is quite good to have in your kill team as well. Now, remember that they have the burst cannons, which are pretty good, but you can get a fusion blaster. as well, and you can get target lock and a couple of other little bits and pieces to put with them, which makes them really good. But one thing that makes them really good as well is there's camouflage fields, so they're an extra -1 to hit to the enemy. So if you're behind cover, then you've got a -2 to be hit, which is great. These things can fly, base move of 8, just like a drone. So I have used these a lot in my own play, but not in competitive. I've always shied away from it, even though I have no list, as I said. But stealth suit, it's definitely a solid unit, and it's something you should look at into, and it's definitely worth a while. Now, obviously, the main unit we've already talked a little bit about, and I won't hamper on about too much, is the drones. There's a lot of different types of drones. Main two that stand out to me are the recon drone, which is the best bar none. Now, the recon drone is able to do things that other things just can't, and it's like having another comm specialist or something with you, but better. Because here's what it does, just so you know. So at the start of the shooting phase, you can choose a pathfinder from your kill team within 6 of the friendly recon drone. Until the end of that phase, that model does not suffer penalties to the hit or injury rolls to their target being obscured. Keep that in mind. So this is what I was talking about before. You can get your railgunners boosted to a point where they are just savage. Think about a sniper specialist. Okay, sniper specialist with the comms bonus, with the sniper ability, which adds another one, and then the drone bonus as well. You can get this down to hitting on 2s, and cover doesn't mean anything. Yeah, your injury roll at the end is in effect by it with this drone bonus as well. So you're talking about headhunting, then it's this chain, and this is what you've got to think about with when you play this as a faction like the Tau, is it's all chained abilities. You need to have things within the right distances of each other all the time so that they can reap the benefits of the bonuses that they can receive and the shenanigans that they can do with for the greater good, savior protocols, all these things. So one thing I did notice playing competitively, because it is a little bit more intense, is that with the Tau force, it did take me a lot longer than other teams to position and move, and that's because you've just got to be so precise with what you're doing. Everything's got to be the right measurement. Double check everything. Double check all your movement. Make sure you're in range of each other. You can provide all the bonuses. Very mathematical team to use, but one that pays off. I think ultimately it's definitely worth that extra brain power that you're going to use to be able to use it. The gun drone I've already talked about. It's a standout and auto included. Take as many as you can. Amazing. The others, there's a grav inhibitor drone which sort of slows people down from charging in that. You could take it, but I just, with the gun drone, you're getting those 4 attacks, and it can save other models anyway with saber protocols. It's definitely the best one. You know what I mean? And you can spam them. You can just get as many as you want. The other drones are okay. They may have purposes, but I just don't find them as valuable as those in competitive play anyway. The only other models we have to talk about really are the ones from Elites, and they are the Crisis Battlesuit. Now, this thing it's actually pretty good, hey? It's not bad. You can take quite a number of weapons on it, so up to 3 weapons. So a good, this one gets thrown around a bit. And when the Elites was released, actually, the first thing I thought of was flamers. Oh my God, I can take 3, right? Yeah, you can. You know what I mean? And with the ability to be able to drop this crisis suit, as a recon sort of strike behind within 5 of the enemy, you can actually get into flamer range straight away, which is another thing too, which has a range of 8, and you can drop it within 5. So I was thinking about this with hordes. I have tried it, and I want to try it on one of our battle reps, and that's take one of these deep striker behind the enemy, right in the middle of it. You know what I mean? Some horde army, Tyranids or orcs or something like that, and then just triple flamer them and just see what happens. You know what I mean? Pretty crazy. Obviously expensive to take that, but if you're taking a larger point game and you don't really care, then Crisis Suit is really good. They are pretty durable as well. Good saving throws. Not bad all round, and with the weapon combinations that they can get, definitely worthwhile considering. The last model on the list really is the Crute Carnivore. Let's just face it sucks. Don't take it. Crute are fun and sort of weird to play, but they're not that great. When you look at the points cost of the Crute Carnivore versus the other options you've got in the list, it's just not worth it. So that's a bit of an overview of the units available to you as a Tau player. Okay, let's have a look at the tactics, or the things that you can spend CP on as a Tau player. I've got to say they're not probably the strongest out of some of the other factions, but there are a couple of standouts. Let's go through them now. So one that is handy is the stimulant injector. So use this tactic when a model from your kill team, other than a drone, loses a wound. Roll a d6 for that wound and each other wound lost by that model for the rest of the phase. On a 5+, that wound is not lost. It's one command point. If you just have to hold something. Maybe you've got your rail gunner, he's pivotal, drone's dead that Savvy protocoled him, and you need to save him. It's not a bad option, huh? Like, just gives you like an invuln basically, which is great. Now, marker lights, shit, I don't really use them. If you do, please comment below and tell me how you went, but they're just a bit of a waste of time in my eyes, so I'm not really into those tactics. Now, ones that I do use a lot are the Mantis Strike and the Stealth Field. So the Mantis Strike itself is a combination of up to 3 models of battle suits that can fly, and also drones. Can be dropped anywhere within 5 of the enemy. So this is great. So you can do advanced strike with drones. If you've got stealth suits or crisis suit, you can use this as well. 1 command point, excellent. Stealth fields, okay, this one's a little bit different, but this is for stealth battle suits. So I have up to 3, which is, what you probably take anyway if you're going to take a sort of stealth suit army. And they can be deployed anywhere from reserve up to 9 of the enemy's deployment zone, which is different. So it's another handy one if you want to get them right up there. Not that they're slow or anything, but something to keep in mind. Support turret replacement. This is one that I've used before in competition as well. So your support turret gets killed, and there's if you move away from your support turret too, this is another thing to mention. Like, your fire warrior has to be near it, so they move out of range of that support turret, it just disappears, which is interesting. But you can get it back with this ability. So 2 points, but maybe you need them. I mean, I generally find with the Tau that I'm usually saving these command points, not so much for the tactics, which are a little bit underwhelming in my eyes, but mainly for the re-rolls and then just your standard tactics. There was one game that I played, it was against Grey Knights, and I think I only had 2 models left. Like, the whole team had been wiped out, and I was winning on points, but my opponent was very, very close to me, and it was the end turn, and this was it, and my whole team was broken, and it came down to morale checks. I had a couple of command points left. Guess what I used? I kept that guy in there. I made sure that he would not break his morale test, and that gave me a point on one of the primaries, and that enabled me to hold victory and not draw the game. So keep your eye on those particular things, like your standard tactics are actually quite good, and they can be quite useful. But upon saying that too, with the Tau, I use a lot of the specialist tactics mainly, especially the sniper one, which gives you a bonus to hit. Fantastic. But also, the demolition one for extra strength on your wounds and stuff. That's awesome as well. So, keep those things in mind, because those tactics are probably what I use most on the Tau, and not so much these ones that are in the book. I find myself not using them a lot, except for that one where maybe you're a bit worried about losing something. You just throw that 1 point in there to try and save his life. That one's pretty good. And then these striking ones, they're good. But otherwise, it's for the Tau, in my opinion, anyway. It's all about your specialist tactics and your standard tactics. Okay, so in summary, that's the Tau kill team in a nutshell. There are some other notes I want to add here, and that's about how to play Tau. I touched on them briefly before, but what is essential as a Tau player is to measure everything, is to know where you are in relation to other models within the kill team. Now, there are so many bonuses that can be applied across the board that Tau can make advantage of. So when you deploy on the battlefield, you want to spread it out like a web. Think like a web, and you want to have everything within range of each other. to be providing those bonuses, whether they be for the greater good, so you can help that unit shoot in Overwatch, or for savior protocols to protect some of your more expensive units like rail rifles and stealth suits. So keep this in mind at all times. Don't forget, because as soon as you forget, you're going to get picked off, because they are quite brittle, these models. So very important that you always measure twice with what you're doing. Make sure that, I'm sure the enemy will, most enemy hate Tau. They've got a really bad reputation as being just hideous to face, and they are, let's face it. They're doing well in all the tournament scenes across the world, to my knowledge, including our own here in Australia. But yeah, so measure everything twice, web things out, work in packs. You're going to have little subgroups within your kill team. So if you're going to take one of those missile turrets, you're going to have a fire warrior near that. You're probably going to want to have a drone near that as well. So there's a group of 3 just to protect it, right? You've also got to have another fire group, which is going to be consisting of your rail rifles with a couple of drones, but you're going to want your recon drone near that, so it can give a bonus. You're also going to want your comm specialist near that, and usually your leader as well, I find. So there's another little subgroup. Everything else other than that is usually drones, and they're usually out there winning the game for you. Everything else other than the drones is usually sitting back supporting, but there are obviously a couple of drones that you keep in reserve at all times to protect those important models and to savior protocol them as needed. So that was just another little note on the Tau kill team. Now, it's a great team to play. As I said, it's a thinking man's team. It's probably not really great for beginners, because there are a lot of little rules in it. They're very easy to forget. There was so many occasions where I've forgotten them in proper, match play and competitive play. You just forget little rules, and then you're kicking yourself at the end. Oh, I forgot that bonus. So just keep that in mind. What I'd like to do is write down a bit of a cheat sheet and have it in front of me of all the things to check for each turn. So, is this model near that model to give it the bonus? Are these models within range of each other? Just little things like that, and just check that every turn. But that's just me. I'm a little bit pedantic with things. But yeah, so this is the Tau kill team. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's not a team that I was originally attracted to, but it's really the first one I played in competition. I didn't know how good they were at the time of doing that. It was more, I had a friend who had a lot of Tau models that he played for 40k, and this is one of the first teams I gathered by buying some of his spares, just the stuff he had left over, and designed something that I thought would work, and it did. It worked quite well. So after a lot of math hammering and working it out, and crazily trying to find content on the internet to see how they worked. But now I have a lot of experience with them. I've probably played them the most out of the kill teams that I have. So yeah, if you like this content, you like this video, please think about liking this video, subscribing to our channel if you haven't, comment below. We appreciate all those things. And check out Patreon if you haven't too. Provide a link down below. But for now, this is WarHQ, and we're signing out.